They
Bruins
lose.
Hi there. How are ya? Oh, that's not how I'm starting the video. I'm just doing an impression of the Bruins locker room during the first intermission, since apparently they'd never met before. I also do other impressions. Here's my David Pastrnak. Here's my Victor Arvidsson. Here's my Morgan Geekie. And here's my Pavel Zacha. I also do a mean Matthew Tkachuk. Bees lose 2-1 in regulation to the Florida Panthers in Sunrise, with goals in order from Mackie Samoskevich, Sam Bennett, and Fraser Minton. The loss goes to, somehow, Jeremy Swayman, who made 22 saves on 24 shots for a .917 save percentage. And the win goes to Sergei Bobrovsky, who made 28 saves on 29 shots for a .966 save percentage. So, what do you want to talk about? If you're expecting more about the game, I don't really have much. I think you know as well as I what happened there. Don't take care of the puck, you're going to get punished, and we get punished twice. Yoki Haru had a rough game in his own end, especially a rough first period, but the whole team had a rough first period. We didn't look like we could string together 2 passes to save our lives. The best skater, by far, was Fraser Minton. He gets the goal. That was a team play. The Pasta put on a good shot into traffic, and then Khusnutdinov got down into the trenches and kind of kicked that puck free. Fraser with some sweet mitts to, keep it far back enough to get the shot off. It was a good play. And honestly, going into the first intermission, I felt pretty good. We were horrible that period and we kept it 2-1. But with 40 minutes left, you think we might get another chance. But I mean, not really. I mean, chances. We got chances. Not shots, but chances. I gotta give the Panthers one thing. I mean, I can give them a lot of credit for various things, and I want to talk more about the Panthers and the Bruins and our doomed lovers relationship, but I'll give the Panthers one thing. Their plexiglass boards are strong, because we tested them today. We tested the boards, we tested the glass, we tested stanchions, and nothing broke. I mean, we must have hit it with about 50 shots from point-blank range, because we weren't hitting the net. We might have hit the post occasionally, the side of the net, sure, but I mean, if it was on net, it was directly, we saw this right here. I mean, it looked like a Panther. It looked like a slightly upgraded version of a high school logo, but we saw this right here and we loved it. We loved it. Everyone loved it. Lindholm, honestly, pick your Lindholm, but Hampus really loved it. Brutal showing in the O zone. The problems in the first period were in the D zone. The problem in the next 2 were in the O zone. In a way, it's ironic that this is my first video because it's not really going to follow the format that I had intended. I actually did shoot a Dallas Stars video. That was the game that, if you're watching this in the future, we won 6-2 just before this. But I accidentally shot it in 4K at 60 FPS, and my iPhone storage is not quite robust enough to edit a video like that. So we had to circle back for the next game, which was a lot less fun to comment on. But very quick, I want to get something out of the way. I guess introducing it, everything I'm doing now I'm introducing. It's called the CAX or CAX. So probably CAX, I think we should stick with that. It's called the CAX, and that's the captain, the alternate, and the scratch. That is my sort of kiss, harm, marry, I don't know what you can or can't say on YouTube, where I pick the best player of the game, I pick the unsung hero of the game, player who didn't get as much credit maybe, and then the scratch of the game, the player who couldn't find a hole deep enough. So for tonight's game, the captain, the C, I'm going to put it on Fraser. I could put it on Swayman about every Bruins win, well, every win that he's in. But I want to give it to Minty because he was really the only guy I saw consistently producing in that first period where we just seemed to take the period off. The A tonight, I'm going to give it to Tanner Jeannot. And Tanner, I didn't get in on the score sheet. But if you looked at the chances he was generating, looked at the position he was in the ice, looked at the shots he was getting on, they were good chances. Now, a lot of players had good chances today, and a lot of players didn't convert them, and I'm not giving them the A. But you have to consider which player it is. David Pastrnak, Morgan Geekie, you expect more in a scoring position from them than you do from Tanner Jeannot. I think Jeannot, what he produces on offense is not all gravy, because, I mean, he was, I think, once a 20-goal scorer. But you have to be realistic about what you're going to get out of him, especially on a team with pretty good scoring depth, that he's not going to be your first or fifth option. But I thought he did a good job getting to areas of the ice that in another game will probably net him a point, net him a goal, net him a couple maybe. He had a couple good looks. And then the scratch today, and it pains me to say it because last game he just got his first goal as a Boston Bruin, but Henry Jokiharju, I thought about Zacha, because I thought Zacha, especially in the first period, looked lackadaisical. Kind of standing there waiting for the puck to come to him on the first goal, kind of standing around waiting for everything else to happen on the rest of the goals. But Jokiharju, the first goal, the pass is not good enough. And then immediately screening Swayman to make it an even harder shot to save. It was a pretty good shot from Samoskevich. But yeah, Jokiharju, a night to forget. And a night that could have implications for the defensive roster heading forward. This team has about 9 seventh defensemen. Not enough top-level defensemen, but it has a bunch of depth defensemen that can all rotate in and out. And once Lohrei is back, I assume he will be back in the lineup. I'll talk, probably not in this video, but later, what I think about that. But Jokiharju can't be none of those guys can afford to be costing the team. Certainly not on a regular basis. Because, you know, if McAvoy hits a rough patch, if Zadorov hits a rough patch, you gotta live with it. But those guys, I don't think we do live with it. And that brings us to the team of the hour, our Huckleberry, the Florida Panthers. Bruins fans have, I wouldn't even say a complicated relationship with the Panthers. They just hate them. But I don't like them. But I don't hate them the way most other Bruins fans do, and I think that's for a couple of reasons. In the first place, I think our window closed before the collapse. If you ask, I would say most Bruins fans, they would say that the Bergeron-Marchand team, their window closed in the 2022-2023 season, when the Panthers came back after being down 3-1 and beat the legendary record-setting Bruins team. But that team was still 13 wins away from hoisting the Stanley Cup. And 13 is a lot, relatively. It's a lot for the playoffs. I mean, the Leafs were 13 wins away like 9 times, and they didn't like that at all. They went through like 3 coaches like that. So I think that the window closed in 2019 in Game 7, where the Bruins got held to 1 goal at home to lose their 3rd game of the series at home to a St. Louis team that 5 months earlier, or 6, or some, that season, had been last place in the entire, I believe, Western Conference. Conference that's not even particularly good. I don't know if the Avalanche were good yet. They might have been. But Jordan Binnington. I'll give Jordan one thing. I do not really, I resent him as a Bruins fan. He shows up for the big games. But there's no way in hell that roster, the Bruins roster, should have lost to that Blues one. Anyway, what's done is done, and now the Blues are somewhere near the basement again. I don't think Binnington is really even should be their starter. I think Hofer's been better, but that has nothing to do with what I'm saying. So I don't really hold the 3-1 collapse against the Panthers that much. And part of that is because I had a little bit given up on that core already, because I think they showed us who they are. And I don't think this team is there yet. I think this team has shown something different, not something better necessarily, but something different. And I think that different can be a type of better. Better is certainly a type of different. But the other reason that I don't hate the Panthers like that is because I'm not really focused on the Panthers. I'm focused on the Bruins. If you look at the great boogeymen relationships in the NHL in the past decade, there are a few that stick out. The Kings constantly getting eliminated by the Oilers. The Wild constantly getting eliminated by whoever they play in the first round. My favorite, personally, the Leafs constantly getting eliminated by the Bruins. You have to go a little further than just 10 years to get all of the big hits. 2013 was a great one. But even if you ignore that, 2018, 2019? Was it 3 years in a row? It wasn't. In 2024, it was, I think, 4 times in the past 10 years. Incorrect. The Leafs went out in Game 7 to the Bruins. And if you listen to Leafs fans, and, Steve Dangle tends to be my point of reference, both because he is my inspiration, in large part, for this, and because I find him amusing. When he talks about those series losses, and when he talks about the Boston Bruins, it's really nothing more than fleeting. He focuses on the Leafs, what the Leafs have done wrong, why the Leafs are in that position. And I don't understand why Bruins fans seem not to do that about the Bruins. They do, to an extent. But they talk a lot about the Panthers. And they talk about how the Panthers are dirty, how the league favors them. Is it fishy that the Panthers have connections to the Department of Player Safety and the league office? Yeah. Do I think it's this grand cabal conspiracy? No. I just think it's a league that refuses to police itself. Do the Panthers play on edge? Are they kind of dirty? Yeah. Not much worse than the Bruins at least have been. Sometimes are. I know AJ Greer's gotten a lot of flack recently because of that, I don't remember whom he hit, but I'm sure you know there was a non-hockey play where he hit another skater in the back right by the boards and got 3 game suspension. That was ridiculous. That was at least a 10-game suspension. I thought he might be done for the season. But, didn't work out that way. I don't really like to talk about things being rigged or conspiracies or cabals because I don't think it's profitable. If that's true, my God, is that over my head? And I'd rather not know. I like to live in my little bubble where all of the hockey that I'm watching on my screen is real. And I think it is real. And I think that the reason the Bruins lost tonight wasn't because the Panthers were diving or because the refs were favoring them and trying to give them calls. I think it was because we had 90 chances where the puck was sitting right in front of the net. We had multiple 20-goal scorers, and they kept putting it on the moon. That's what I think the problem was. Why do I think we lost in 2023 to the Panthers? Why do I think we blew that series lead? Couple things. One, I'm going to get flack for this from both sides, really. Marchand plays for both teams. That breakaway, Game 5, Game 6, might have been Game 7. Game 7 went to overtime, and I don't think the Bruins even did well in it because we had the lead and then the Panthers scored. Anyway, the breakaway in overtime where Marchand could have just ended the series, that didn't go in. That wasn't very good. You would like to see that scored. Monty sticking with Ullmark when he clearly didn't have it, and Swayman was playing better. That wasn't good. Monty playing Patrice Bergeron at the end of the regular season in a completely meaningless game that ostensibly aggravated some sort of abdominal oblique injury, took him out of the series for 4 or 5 games, and then had him at about 50% coming back. That wasn't good. Those are things the Bruins did. Those are things that this team, I don't have a Bruins jersey here. I moved kind of recently, which is why you see that box. I would rather you not ask how recently, because then it will expose how long I take to unpack. So anyway, this is my Boston jersey for now. I'll have some other stuff in soon, but support the BWHL. It's a good product. I would love to get teams in more cities. I think Detroit should have one. I think LA should have one. Not that I'm biased or anything. I think a lot of places should have one. Support the PWHL. But anyway, that's what the Bruins should worry about. And that's what this team should worry about too. I mean, not Brad Marchand. He didn't even play today. But this team needs to worry about itself. And if we don't, I can see a scenario where things go badly. Next game is a doozy. We're going to Amalie Arena. Is it still Amalie Arena? Actually, I think it might not be. We're going to Tampa. We're playing in Tampa's barn. That's a tough team. It's a bad matchup for us. It's one of the 2, maybe 3 matchups in the league where we don't have a goaltending advantage. I don't think I'll take Swayman on any given night, but Swayman's usually a clear advantage. Against Vassy, he's just not. It's never clear. Tampa's a tough team to go in and beat, especially for a team like us who have not been good on the road. We couldn't do it the other way around. Florida road trips can be hard, but after we lost in the Stadium Series, Yes, I know, that game was ridiculous. The calls were dubious. There was all kinds of stuff going on. After we lost, the next game was in Florida. The Panthers didn't have the level of injury that they did, but they were still pretty injured. Barkov was out. I don't think Kachuk was back yet. So it was a shorthanded Panthers side, a Panthers side that was already struggling to stay anywhere near the playoff picture, and that was in early February. And we went in and we lost. We lost 6-5 in shootout, I believe. So we got 2 points. We got a point each out of those 2 games. And, you know, if you would have said going into it that you'll play Tampa and you'll play Florida on the road and you'll get 2 points, you'd say, yeah, sure. Probably could have been 4. And once you get the one off of Tampa, you at least want it to be 3. We were saved after that loss to Florida. If you don't remember the Stadium Series game, by the way, we took like 8 penalties in a row. That one I do a lot of exaggeration. That one might be literal. We took so many penalties in a row. And we had like the eternal 5-on-3. It felt like I spent my entire life watching 3 Bruins skate in small circles. And it felt like the loss to Florida, we didn't bounce back. And it feels like we never get up to play that team. It feels like they're the ones who were slighted by us, not the other way around. It feels like we broke their hearts, and they had the edge, and they had the passion, and they had the aggression. And that's more sickening than anything. To watch another team, the team that destroyed the last hurrah of the greatest generation of Bruins in the past 30 years. 40? 40? I'd say 40. I don't know. I wasn't alive during the 80s or even the 90s. Despite what some of you may think. The fact that the Panthers are always the team that are attacking the puck, that are laying down the body, it's sickening. It's sickening. I want, even though it was a different core, a different time, first of all, a lot of the players that are on the team now were on the team then. Second of all, have some pride in the B. This team's 101 years old. It's a real culture. There's a real society. The Bruins mean something. To me, they mean a lot to me. They mean more to me than any other sports team on the face of the earth. And I wish it weren't so. I'm a Boston sports fan. Do you know how nice it would be to just be a Celtics or a Patriots fan? The Celtics are constantly overachieving. The Patriots went to the Super Bowl this year. I thought they might finish like 5-12. The Red Sox, oh, Maron. Hey, 4 World Series in the last, since I've been born. I'll take that. Anyway. I get to pick a lot of different teams, but God, it's the Bruins. I love the Bruins. I have never, ever gotten more excited for a team, and I have never, ever gotten so mad at a team. And that's how I know I love them, because I hate them. And I just hope that this locker room feels the same intensity, passion that I do, that the fans do, because I know I'm not alone. And I think they do in part. Honestly, one thing I really like about this group is that they play with a little more edge and a little more heart and a little more aggression. The fourth line, I didn't give them a shout out earlier. They deserve it. Fourth line was good. Casti had he kept tripping over the blue line and just falling and being caught up in all sort of strives and conundra. I think both of those plurals are wrong. But they were playing hard. They were getting into the greasy areas. Obviously, Jeannot had a good game. Anyway, we were saved by the back-to-back Tampa loss, Florida loss last time, which I think could have been a problem. I think could have started a skid because we got rattled by all the calls in the Tampa game and by ultimately losing. We didn't play well against Florida. I think that could have been a recipe for several bad losses in a row, but the Olympic break came. And our 2 major Olympians, I mean, obviously we had several Olympians, but other than Pasta, I would say that our biggest 2 Olympians were both Americans, and they came back with that awesome rub from winning the gold. And we righted the course, and we righted the ship. We lost to Florida. We've lost to Toronto, too. I don't really care as much about that one. We lost to Florida. That's true. That's done. I won't call Tampa, the game coming up, a must-win. Because 1, I'd be setting myself up for disappointment. And 2, it's not. We are still, I believe, 6 points clear in the wild card. Pretty comfortable. There are 5 or 6 games left, I think, depending on which team you are. We're 6 points clear. We shouldn't get passed by 2 teams. But if we lose and the other teams win, then we're 4 points clear. Still okay. All you have to be is winning on tiebreaker. Do we want it to come down to that? Do we want to limp into the postseason, regardless of who our opponent is? I'll feel a hell of a lot better coming in on a couple wins. It's hard to say. This game isn't the end-all be-all. It's a frustrating game. In parts of the first period, I think you just burn the tape and move on, but there was plenty of the game where we were getting good chances, and Bobrovsky played very well. This game isn't the end-all be-all. Florida's season is over. Toronto, I do not think will end up with a pick in the top 5. I think we end up with that pick either way, and we can draft whomever, Adam Novotny. Apparently people want that. But there needs to be urgency. Creating hair continuity must be very difficult on a real TV or movie production, because I imagine mine just going all over the place. Anyway, what was I talking about? Urgency. There needs to be urgency. The situation's far from resolved. We are far from in. I know we have a 95% chance. Yeah, a lot of chances for a lot of things to happen. And what I don't love to hear are the comments that I saw from Marco Sturm, a coach of whom I'm fond, a coach with whom I think the Bruins should stick. That doesn't really even sound right. He said after the game that the Bruins didn't give enough respect to the 2-time Stanley Cup, whatever. That the Bruins didn't give enough respect to their opponents. They know. We saw the roster, whatever it was, we knew that guys were injured, and so we're mailing it in now because we don't respect them. And if that's really the case, then I have something for you, Marco. It's a mirror. You can see my setup here. That's a lamp that simulates sunrise. You can also see that I have a PlayStation controller and various other things. I got this for you, though, Marco. Sorry, I forgot my central point. A mirror. Because whose fault is that? I mean, multiple people. First of all, this team maybe should have a captain. I'm not saying who it should be, because I think I'd probably vote Pasta. I think most people would vote McAvoy. I'm totally fine with either. Probably not Hampus Lindholm. That's just me. But besides that, and besides the leaders in the locker room who need to be able to motivate the team, and the team needs to be able to motivate itself. They're all grown men. Well, actually, some of them are quite young. But they're all men-ish. And they're all hockey players, and they're all professional hockey players. They need to be able to motivate themselves, sure. But you need to respect. Talking about respect. They don't respect the opponent. Why not? What were you saying leading up to it? These guys might have taken our lunch money, most of our games for the past. I didn't even talk about how the Panthers beat us after we beat Toronto in 2024, because I didn't care at all the bit that the Panthers were so obviously the better team. It wasn't even worth my emotional effort. It would have been cool to beat them and break their hearts, but that wasn't even close to happening, and it didn't. So why weren't they ready? Why didn't they respect them? Are they not going to respect Buffalo because they've been on a drought if we play them? Obviously not. Obviously not. And I don't mean to sound so negative about this team, because this is the highest I've been on a Bruins team in years. But that is not an answer. If that's the case, we didn't respect them, whoa. If that's true, and not just some platitude that let's spin the wheel of excuses, sure. All right, well, we better respect them next time, and you better take a good look there. Good look in that mirror. And you decide. How are you going to make them respect them? You're going to respect Tampa, I tell you that. If you don't respect Tampa, it's going to be a lot worse. We ain't going to need to bowl the goalie. I have confidence in this team. I know it might not sound like it. It might sound like I just hate them. I have a ton of affection for this team. I have respect for them and for what they've done this year and for how they've overperformed. Talk about overperforming. I know I gave the Celtics credit earlier. Talk about overperforming. Where did you have this team finishing in the Atlantic this year? Top 5? I didn't. I had Tampa ahead of them. I'm not going to say Buffalo because I'm going to be so real. I had Montreal ahead of them. I had Detroit ahead of them. I'm never going to give up on the Yzer plan. Eventually, it has to work, right? You know who else isn't? The Illiches. Enjoy another year of that, Detroit. I had Detroit ahead of them. I had Montreal ahead of them. I had Tampa ahead of them. I had Toronto ahead of them. I knew they lost Mitch Marner. I didn't know they lost their minds. I still had Florida ahead of them. I thought Ottawa easily could have been ahead of them. I thought they'd be better than Buffalo. That one was definitely wrong. I didn't think this was a playoff team. I did not expect Kuznetsov and Minton to come in and both sniff 20 goals. Probably not going to get there. Minty's at 17 and 17. I mean, he's not going to be 40 points, but he could hit 20. It would take a pretty good run at the end. That would be cool. I think Kuznetsov's at 16, so I mean, not that far off. I didn't expect to be here, and I'm appreciative that we are. But now that we are, just because we didn't expect to be here doesn't mean that we can't now capitalize or try. I have a lot of respect for this team and affection for this team and admiration for the coach. And honestly, even for the front office. And I have never been a Neely fan, Sweeney or Neely fan. But what do I know? I wouldn't have had us in the playoffs. Apparently they do. So we'll see. This game will probably be nothing other than a memory and maybe some moderate draft position flips. Even next game might not matter in the grand scheme of things. I mean, it matters to Tampa. They're still duking it out for all kinds of stakes in the East, both in the Atlantic and in the Eastern Conference as a whole. So they're going to come out. Are they going to respect us? I think so. So we'll see. Go Bees. I'll disclaim this by saying I'm done talking about the material content of the game or even the Bruins. So if that's all you're interested in, then you might want to just click off here. But anyway, if this just came up in your For You page, first of all, how? Second of all, thanks. I'm Southie Bees. That is not my name, but it might as well be. Lifelong Bruins fan, yada yada. I'm sure you gather that from the fact that I have a now 1 video long Bruins YouTube channel. I have never lived in Boston. That's kind of my shtick. That's what I bring to the table. I've never lived in Boston. I grew up in the South. I grew up in Atlanta, Georgia. I went to school there and in Michigan. I currently live in Southern California, so I've been all over the place, but never to New England. And as a result, I've never had a Bruins community. And as you might have noticed from the preceding 25 or so minutes, I have a lot of thoughts about this team. Thoughts that I like to share with people other than my long-suffering girlfriend and my longer-suffering father. So I decided if I don't have the community where I live, because I just keep living in places further and further from Boston, then maybe I could bring the community with me, and I could bring it everywhere, on the internet. So that's why I created Southie Bees. The name is a tribute to several things. First of all, my father is from Boston and he's Irish, so I spent a lot of time in Southie. Wanted to include that, figure that gives me some credit. South, because I lived in the South, I'm from the South. You wouldn't tell it from my accent, I can explain that later too. And because I live in Southern California now, and actually I went to school in Southern Michigan, so that's why it's Southie Bees. And I wanted something kind of pithy, and now in the various group chats I'm in, people call me Southie, so I think I nailed it. Speaking of group chats, shout out to the group chat. If you're from the group chat, you know which group chat. And if you're not from the group chat, then you don't know which group chat. And so there's no point in me saying it either way, but shout out to the group chat. I can tell you about my accent. Why don't I just do that now? My father has a heavy-ish Boston accent, so occasionally I have stuff like that. My mother's family was from Tidewater, Virginia, which is the low-lying coastal southeastern region, and they have that Canadian-sounding O, which is why I say about and south and all those things. And then occasionally you'll get something southern in there, like a McConaughey, all right. But you're probably not interested in that. I study language, it's what I do. And that was my other point. This is really off cuff if you couldn't tell. That was my other point. I'm not looking to get famous, to be big on YouTube. I don't want to be an influencer. I don't want nothing out of this. I have a day job. I am good at my day job, and I enjoy my day job. So I really have nothing to gain here other than getting an outlet to express my often frustration, but sometimes appreciation of my favorite hockey team, my favorite sports team, and maybe to talk to other people who feel the same way or feel differently. You can make a great career off haters. I don't think I'm hateable enough, but maybe I am. Maybe I could become hateable enough. If it ends up being, the way to go, I could definitely lean into it. But in any case, if you're watching, if this just popped up and you want to hear me, I don't know, I'd like to do every game. This is still very nascent. I don't quite know what this is going to be. I just want this to be a Bruins environment, somewhere where I can talk about it. And other people, especially people who maybe aren't from Boston or no longer live in Boston or whatever, Bruins fans, to have a place to talk about the team. So if that's something that interests you, or if you want to see me have a meltdown every once in a while when something catastrophic happens, which is, not infrequent, then I'd really appreciate, the like, follow, subscribe, blah, 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 tell your friends, blah, 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 blah. I'm not going to do this every video. People know how YouTube works. If they're interested, I'm sure somebody will stick around. But I just wanted to explain a little bit of who I am and why I've started this since it's my first video, because I don't want to make a whole separate video for it. So anyway, if you made it this far, thank you. Go Bees.